Fundraisers, and welcome to this video. We're happy to present some new information for you today. As you all know, we have a trailer that hauls it's a toy hauler that hauls our four-wheelers. So that's one way that we take trips and go camping. And the other way is we have a complete tent set up, as you have seen some of our other videos with. So we have those two ways of slipping away and getting out and about in nature for a while. With my recent retirement, yay! We are adding a third possibility, and that is car trips with no extra big equipment. So this video is all about meal equipment for car trips. We're going to start doing meals just in our cars as we travel on road trips. So today we're going to cover 4 different points. The first one is, why do we need a separate approach for car trips? Second is, how are we going to keep foods cool? Third is, how are we going to warm things up if we want a hot meal? And fourth is, what meal types are we going to use and what containers are indicated with the meal types? So let's start from the top. Our first point is, why is there a separate approach for when we do road trips in our car? Well, as I have announced in our last video, Jim traded in his old clunker for an Explorer, which has given us a new, safe way to take longer trips in his car. So I'm thrilled about that. And now our time is our own. And so with being retired, we have much more latitude in what exactly we want to do. In the wintertime and colder months, we do not use our trailer or our tent for camping and outings. So this gives us that third option. So our needs are going to be very different. What's going to be happening with our car trips, so we're going to load up whatever we need in the morning, and we're going to drive all one day and find a hotel, and then drive the next day and find a hotel for as many days as it takes us to get to our destination. So we will be staying in hotels, and we're going to choose those that have a complimentary breakfast in the morning. So that means I just have to plan for 2 meals a day. The 2 other reasons why I'm going to be doing our own food as we go is, number one is cost, and the second is for nutrition. Usually when we do little car trips, we'll stop at a gas station and Jim will say, "Can I get you anything?" And I'll say, "Oh, just surprise me." And so he'll come back with a bag of potato chips, which I love, or a candy bar, which I also love, which is terrible nutrition. And so I've got to quit that. And so he and I are both, as we both enter retirement now, he's been retired for a year, but with both of us now retired, we have to really pay attention to our nutrition, because I want to stay fit and healthy for absolutely as long as I can, and so does Jim. And so no more gas station foods for us. We're going to be packing our own. And so it's cost and nutrition, along with why our needs are different, for why there is a separate approach to our road trips. So how are we going to keep food cool? You might think an ice chest would work great, and it would. We've worked with ice chests a lot. But we purchased this little electric refrigerator, a camping refrigerator, for tent camping. And so we're going to try to use as much equipment as we already have so that we can use it for multi-purposes. Now, this is really a great little piece of equipment, because I can turn the temperature down to 0 degrees all the way up to 55 degrees. So it will be a freezer or a refrigerator, whatever we want it to be. And as I'm thinking about these road trips, I would imagine that we will be using it mostly for a refrigerator. So how are we going to power this? Because, you know, it doesn't have ice in it, and we won't have the mess with ice, which is really, really good. Well, we have 2 options. We have the plug into the wall type outlet, and we have 12 volt that goes into like a cigarette lighter place. So thankfully we have 2 options that we can choose from. And we have the equipment now that will satisfy either of these. The other day we discovered in Jim's new car that in the back seat there is a standard plug-in. Isn't that cool? Just right in the back seat. So we'll be using this to keep this plugged in for as long as we are in the car. Now, when we're not in the car and the motor is not running anymore and we still have food in here that needs to be kept, then we will use this connection in our baby Bluetti. And so it does have a 12 volt connection that we can plug this into. It also has a standard plug too, so we can really use the Bluetti for either way. And I have already tested that out and it works just great. So we'll be traveling with this fridge with an option of 2 power sources, which we have covered. So next, how are we going to warm up meals on the go? And frankly, I don't like sandwiches in the trip. I just can't make them work very well for me. They're messy and they're drippy, and about the only sandwiches that I've been able to use successfully were when I was taking students out in the field for science investigations in my backpack. The only sandwich that would work for me was a peanut butter and jelly. And I did that so often that I pretty much burned out my love for peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I'm looking for a real meal that has good nutrition as we travel. And so I want to be able to warm something up if necessary. So I just did a search on Amazon for car ovens, and oh my gosh, a ton of them came up. And so I did find this one that I really like. I have tried this out, I've tested it. And I wanted something that would warm up meals for both of us at the same time, and this one does work. Now, this travel refrigerator is in our Amazon store, as is this. I've just recently added this as well. And this has only one option for a power source, and that is 12 volt. So we will be using the Bluetti to power this when we need it. And of course, it won't run all the time. It will only run for long enough to heat up our food, and then we'll unplug it. So this will mean that I have to practice on the timing. So will I be bringing frozen foods that I put in here, and then they will not only have to thaw, but also warm? I think not. I think if I will have foods in the freezer. I'm going to show you some from the freezer in just a minute. But I think what I would do with those is leave them out the day before for them to thaw, or put them in the refrigerator to thaw, so that when we put them in here, then they would be thawed, and then all they would have to do is warm up. The exception to that might be if we're going on a 2 or a 3 day trip and I am packing enough meals for all of those days, then yes, I might take some things right out of the freezer and put in here so that they can thaw slowly in this refrigerator. So what types of meals am I thinking about so far? And I know full well that once we actually get doing this, my ideas will evolve and change. But here's what I'm thinking so far. I have decided that I don't want to cook meals as much as I just want to heat them up. Meaning, I'm going to pre-cook things and have them ready to go, either to pull out of the refrigerator or pull out of the freezer on the day that we leave to go on our road trip, whatever it might be. So I shopped for containers that might lend themselves really well to doing that type of thing. For the past 10 years, I've taken my lunch with me to work every day, but we have a refrigerator at work and a microwave, so it has not been a big deal. So that's a little bit different when in thinking about foods when we are on a road trip. So here's what I found, and I'm really, really excited about these containers. And these are also up in our Amazon stores. So this is a Bentgo, B-E-N-T-G-O. I have 4 of these, only 3 are out. And so this is a stackable container. The top is separated, and you can put whatever you may want to in here depending on what the meal is down below. And then there's a separator layer that has cutlery with it, which is really nice. And then the bottom to fit whatever food you might want. And I'm thinking soup or other things that would be easy to start off with in our freezer and then move to the refrigerator and then here for warming. And it's nice that it has its own cutlery, so I won't have to worry about that. And so this is pretty much our setup. And so I want to show you a couple of meals that I have done. And the strap is really handy for keeping the boxes together. And this is how I put these in the freezer. And this is how they fit right inside here if the top layer needs to be warmed. It may be that the top layer holds crackers or nuts that don't need to be warmed, well, whatever. But it can hold 2 stacked Bentgos with the lid down and the heat going. Now, when I tested this out, I tested it with cooking some cracked cereal for morning breakfast. And I put in the cracked cereal, and the water, and it cooked it in here. It took an hour and 45 minutes, but it got to it. But who cares about time when you're on the road? You just start it enough ahead of time and let it do its things while the miles go by. And it did cook it. It got up to 163 degrees, and it was just fine. It tasted just great. But I'm not going to be cooking breakfast in here. I don't want to cook anything. So mostly it's going to be just warming up. So here's another container that I found. I was just walking down the aisles at Walgreens the other day, and I saw this on the shelf, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is perfect. And so this is a little salad container. It also has cutlery with it that attached to the lid. It has 2 stories, the bottom for the salad, and then the top layer, which is divided for whatever additions you might want to put on the salad, or whatever complements you want to put in here, crackers or nuts or craisins or whatever you don't want to go in the lower section. And then it has a little container for some salad dressing. And I thought that this was really cool. Now, the downside to these containers is that they're going to get dirty. And I don't have a dishwasher in my car, in Jim's car. Sorry, honey, it's your car. And so what we might be doing is doing a few little dishes at night in our hotel room in the bathroom sink. But you know what? That's okay to do too. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple of the meals that I have that I'm already storing up and getting ready to go. Now, these have been in the freezer for several days, and there's nothing in the top section. I just put them in the freezer to keep the pieces together. But the top section remains open for whatever I might want to put in there. But in this one is for Jim. This is a piece of wonderful salmon that we cooked the other day. And this has squash.
Butternut squash.
Thank you. This has butternut squash cubes that we cooked in the air fryer. I'm learning that an air fryer is a fabulous appliance, especially when I think about doing meals like this. It's a really great thing to have. And so when he has this, he'll just be able to use his fork to flake it. It's not that big of a deal to cut that up because it's salmon. And then in the top, I can put a little salad or some sliced veggies or something else, so that I would take this off before putting it in here and just put this closed container in the warmer in the car oven. Then I also did another meal. And this also makes really good use of leftovers as we are going along. This one, again, same thing, nothing in the top. This one is for me, and it is leftover chicken from Christmas Eve. And I chunked the chicken because chicken isn't as easy to pull apart in bites if it's a breast. It would require a knife and a fork and the whole thing, but I just wanted bites that I could take up with a fork. And then the same butternut squash cubes right there that we did in the air fryer. So these are our first 2 meals. I'm thinking all the time about different configurations for meals, for soups and things that I can put in here. You know, we have foods that are freeze-dried and are dehydrated and are frozen. So those are the 3 food preservation methods that we pretty much use all the time for our emergency preparedness. And I'll be able to pull foods from any one of those sources. For instance, some dehydrated fruit could go in this top basket as well, or little snacks of anything that we have out there in our food storage. So we've talked about 4 things: why we need a new approach for road trips, how we're going to keep things cold, how we're going to warm things up, and then the power source, of course, that goes along with it, and then the meal types and different containers that I'm experimenting with. So I think we're all set and ready to go. The next step is to actually try this out. And I'm not going to try it out on a 2 or a 3 day trip. Our first trip will be later in the spring when the roads get a little bit better. It's all snowy outside right now. I don't want to travel on those roads. But when the roads clear and the weather clears just a little bit, we're headed to the northwest, which for us is about a 12-hour drive. So I will need 4 meals, 2 lunches and 2 suppers. And so I have 4 of these, so that's going to be just exactly right. But I'm not going to try out this array on the real thing. We're going to do a little day trip in just a little while down to Lake Powell, where we will take 2 meals for us, a breakfast and a lunch, and then we will see how that goes. The salad dish over there is probably going to be more used for lunches than, I don't think that I'll use heavy meals like the 2 that I showed you for both lunch and dinner. So anyway, when we do that, we will take you out to Jim's car, show you how everything fits and plugs in, and then we'll take you with us as we go down to the lake. And so that will be coming up, probably our next video. So I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks for joining us today for this video. See you soon.